So I've been trying to sort of have frameworks to help the researchers at our place sort of bend their minds around this. Starting with little simple frameworks about can we, this is basically like a fuzzy logic approach, can we actually look at data in terms of the numerical statistical balance of opinion in relation to the depth of feeling expressed. So that's a way of bringing together qual and quant. And you have quite a difference between situations at the top right where you've got numerical support supported by depth of feeling, as opposed to other positions on that matrix. This is just a way of thinking. It's not a kind of a presentation chart you'd ever see anywhere when you're presenting. Then you fuse that with the idea of the power of evidence, what we already know from intuition, prior knowledge, in relation to what we know about the robustness of that methodology. We know that focus groups are great, but we know they're very limited in some areas because people give socially desirable responses in certain areas. So we factor that in. And again, if we've got information top right, it's a methodology we know works and it squares with what we know. And then we come down to looking at the internal consistency of the data. Within any one methodology, how did all of those focus groups go within one methodology, and also how did the pattern of data look across different types of methods. And you sort of stir all that together and you have a kind of fuzzy logic way of looking at data that allows you to arrive at what I call like the compensation principle. So you say, what do we now have to do to compensate for shortfalls in that data against the classic criteria of validity and reliability. So that's just a way of trying to, rather than just sort of like, this is the criticism I had of some of the companies I work for, where they show me like the data wall, and when I was asking questions saying, well, that's a really creative way of getting the stuff together, but what are the kind of criteria you're using to assess the robustness of every little bit of post-it note? And then it's kind of, oh, well, it works, baby, trust me, so it's long on the creativity, but it doesn't fall back to having robustness. So you just need little frameworks to try and do something there. And I've now sort of moved this along to the idea of borrowing this from De Bono, who's got his book you've probably read, The 6 Thinking Hats. And he's also got a book called 6 Information Frames. And the De Bono view is that there isn't a kind of silver bullet. And what you have to do is systematically work through the data in a kind of individual way before arriving back at a kind of integrated view. So I've sort of now find this kind of a helpful thinking tool when I'm confronted with lots of different data. So you've got the idea of the scoping frame. Let's just make sure we're looking completely at the issue that we're focusing on. So this isn't just about, it might be about, well, we've got some customer satisfaction data, but actually the end objective is how we build growth for this company. So you've got the idea of the focus of the project. Then the evaluation frame is all the classic stuff. What we can use. Is this significant at the 95% level of confidence? What is the design effect on the survey? So there we bring all of the classic stuff. The experience frame is the kind of normative stuff that we've learned as researchers, that we all know that heavy users of a product tend to underestimate their usage and light users overestimate. So there's a whole bunch of de facto market research theory that's been built up that you can bring to bear. So that's the kind of experience frame. Then the holistic frame is using some of the things I've just spoken about to try and break down the barriers between qual and quant and bring things together and see what it looks like. Then the enrichment frame is saying we've been licensed. The book that Keith referred to, that someone called Virginia Valentine, is quite a well-known semiotician, wrote a nice little intro for it, and she just had this nice phrase, which is, researchers today should believe that they're admissible evidence. So we can put some of ourselves into this. So we need a framework for doing that, which is the enrichment frame. The business frame is the idea that business people always want those sort of killer heuristics. I guess this will be familiar to you in your world. There might be, Keith would know there's 21 things you should ask of someone to see whether they've got sunstroke, but the heuristic would be there's 2 quick things you can go for to see whether they've got that. So you need to be getting your data in a form. This is where the management consultants are very good, because those little McKinsey 2x2s, we can all be rather cynical about them, but they do hit the spot because they immediately tap into how people think. So we've got the kind of business frame, and then the next part, the final part of the thinking process, is the decision frame. there was the chairman of IBM, a great quote he said, decision making is easy once someone has framed the choices for me. And so that's what we're doing there with the, you're actually getting down to framing the decision and then trying to anticipate some of the things that can go wrong. And there's lots of really good books around now about, waving the red flag if you're going to present some data, but you know that people are going to attach too much importance to a familiar bit of qualitative evidence and not pay enough attention to the quant data, or the other way around. So there's things you can do there. So this is sort of at a high level, and if you wanted more information, I've written some stuff up on this, so you can always get hold of a copy of that. So, but the final thing I'm playing around with now is we're just developing more training around the idea of storytelling, and the storytelling mechanism is quite useful as a way of integrating and bringing everything together, because I used to be an academic, and 95% of the students who got sort of second-class honours degrees used to turn in work that's over here somewhere. You can see their little minds tick over. They've been sent a problem, and they've gone away and got block of evidence A and written it up, and then gone and had a coffee somewhere, and then come back and written block of evidence B up, and then had another coffee, and then block of evidence C, and then they probably looked around and said, well, what was that question again? And then sort of said, and you could see their minds clonk through, and you're going through marking all this stuff and thinking, yes, it's all very earnest. And then you suddenly get something like this, where someone says, the key issues that answer your question are 1, 2, 3, 4, and they've actually integrated all of the evidence into the story. So I'm now sort of quite into the idea of the storytelling format as the integration device. And I haven't got time to go into this, but we got the idea of a training program that talks about the different elements of building the story and how you put structures together, and the structure of storytelling, dipping into some of those other things I've spoken about in terms of the frames, allow you to construct an integrated story. So the word from the evil, cruel world of commercial research is there isn't a kind of silver bullet. There's a kind of a great keenness to bring together this sort of left and right brain, whole brain thinking. Everyone wants to do that, but the pragmatism is good in a way. But I've been sort of beating the drum, saying the industry does need to have some kind of framework so we can actually strike the balance. So that's just a quick overview, and if you wanted more information, I can send you stuff, or Keith can send you stuff. So thank you very much for your attention.